Good afternoon, everyone. Shalom. I'm Shosh Bedrosian, spokeswoman for the National Public Diplomacy Directorate here in the Prime Minister's office. I will take a few questions after a couple of very brief points to share with you. Just make sure you put your questions in the chat of this Zoom with your name and your outlet. It is Tuesday, October 27th, and today is day 753 since Hamas massacred communities, murdering hundreds of people and taking 251 people as hostages into the Gaza Strip. Today, 13 of our deceased hostages remain in captivity. They were either murdered on October 7th or murdered in captivity by Hamas monsters. I was hoping to stand up here today and tell you we received the remains of one or all of our 13 murdered hostages last night who would have been identified by now, but instead I stand here to tell you something different that completely explains the story of who Hamas is, a barbaric group of Islamic jihadists that value nothing but cruelty against Israel and its own people. Last night, Israel received the remains of a deceased hostage from Gaza, and following the identification process, it was determined the partial remains belong to Ofir Tsarfati, a 27-year-old who was murdered in Hamas captivity after being kidnapped from the Nova Music Festival. Ofir was celebrating his 27th birthday on October 7th, 2023, with his partner and friends that horrific day when he was shot and wounded. The IDF rescued his body from Gaza in November of 2023, where he was later buried in Israel by his family. In March of 2024, additional remains of Ofir were returned to Israel for burial. Hamas has kept his family in a horrific loop, making it now the third time they will need to open Ofir's grave and rebury him. After he was murdered at the beginning of the war, and in August of 2024, Hamas also published a picture of Ofir's body. As mentioned in yesterday's briefing, IDF personnel are strictly monitoring and supervising the process Hamas claims they are taking to locate and retrieve our hostages. For those journalists consistently seeking to spare Hamas and show empathy that they cannot locate the bodies of our hostages that they murdered, listen to this. I can confirm to you today that Hamas dug a hole in the ground yesterday, placed the partial remains of Ofir inside of it, covered it back up with dirt, and handed it over to the Red Cross. The IDF caught the entire sequence of events on a military drone, an act that is deliberate and is a disgraceful deception that is just one of many lies Hamas has been propagating since the beginning of the war. The Prime Minister ordered a meeting to take place at the IDF headquarters with senior-ranked security officials to discuss the serious repercussions the terror group will now face. Hamas signed a deal that would require them to hand over all of our 48 hostages, which was violated 15 days ago now. Israel has not only waited patiently during this time, but gave Hamas an opportunity to retrieve and hand over all of our 28 deceased hostages in captivity. We are fully aware and have knowledge that Hamas can locate and retrieve the remains of our 13 deceased hostages that are still in Gaza right now. The deception by Hamas we see today is nothing new. We've been trying to warn the world and the press about it since the beginning of this war. Lie after lie, the media has fallen into their trap. The same trap they created when spreading misinformation about severe starvation inside of Gaza for 2 years. I can share with you today that Israel continues to facilitate the entry of thousands of trucks carrying humanitarian aid and food into the Gaza Strip each week, with hundreds of trucks entering on a daily basis. Now, despite this ongoing effort, much of the media's attention remains fixated on the issue of aid. And in recent days, both the Prime Minister's office and IDF officials have repeatedly been called upon to respond to questions on this topic. Too often during live interviews and broadcasts, journalists are quick to interrupt or accuse Israel of not allowing sufficient aid into Gaza. To those journalists, I would like to pose a question to you. For the past 2 years, you have relied heavily on social media to illustrate the suffering of Palestinians inside of the Gaza Strip, suffering caused by Hamas's control and actions. You've shared videos of airstrikes, destroyed buildings, and scenes of hardship, and often out of context to shape a particular narrative about what's actually happening in Gaza. But if you are willing to use social media to highlight suffering, why not also use it to show the other side of the reality, the evidence of abundance of food supplies that's now visible across several cities in Gaza? There are videos that are taken on social media, posted all over social media, and posted actually within the last few days of immense and abundance amount of food. All journalists have access to these pages on Instagram or on TikTok, which showcases a butcher with a variety of meat options, bustling stores, dazzling fresh fruit in abundance, hot food served at restaurants and in people's homes, and desserts like sweet treats, crepes, milkshakes, and even ice cream. I see this stuff on social media, by the way, on a daily basis, and I have yet to see it reflected in the news, in these outlets. Social media is a powerful storytelling tool, and we all understand how it works. You select images that support your narrative, yet what we don't see in mainstream coverage are the images circulating online today of Gaza City supermarkets and restaurants with a variety of hot food, products, and options for people in the neighborhood. These images are genuine, easily accessible, and widely shared by residents themselves. The people of Gaza are clearly not afraid to show the reality on the ground. So the question remains, why doesn't the media show it too? I'll now take a few questions. Okay. Or Shaked from Israel Hayom. What's your response to Israel's what is your response to Hamas pretending to unearth remains of an Israeli hostage when in reality they dug it up minutes before? Did Israel give away 15 bodies of Hamas terrorists in exchange for the remains? If so, does it count as a valid exchange per the 20-point plan, or will Israel demand to receive the body of another hostage for the bodies that were delivered? I'm hoping to see on nearly all of the front pages of newspapers and the top of your newscast today the brutality, the barbarism of Hamas. This is who Hamas is. For some reason, it's taken 2 years for hopefully the media to open up their eyes to see who Hamas is. Put yourself in the shoes of a family right now. They will now have to reopen the grave of their child for the second time now. Having to do this after trying to grieve and close a circle that has been so beyond painful for them. This is who Hamas is. We've been trying to alert the world for so long. Unfortunately, so many of you who are actually on our Zoom call right now have fallen into the Hamas traps of believing and having empathy for this terror group that they can't somehow find our hostages. But look at what they did today. They purposely planted the remains of one of our hostages who has already returned home and been buried 2 years ago, faking that they found new remains of another hostage. We have 13 hostages in captivity at this point in time. We want them home. We expect them to come home. And I hope this is continued to be repeated. Israel is aware that Hamas knows where these bodies are located. Santiago from Spanish National Radio. Is the government thinking of setting a deadline for the return of all deceased hostages? Could the war be resumed if Hamas fails to comply? Let me say it as simple as it is. In terms of consequences and repercussions for Hamas, nothing is off the table right now. Also, in terms of just Spanish National Radio, I hope you're picking up on all of these messages of who Hamas is, right? And they are, in fact, a terror organization. Make sure that it says that they are not militants. This is a terror organization, and they are continuing to cause the families of Israel immense pain and suffering. Look at what is going on with this family right now, having to deal with this. And let's also, once again, point out 13 other families are waiting for the remains of their loved ones to be returned, a commitment Hamas has made. It's something they signed off on. Remember, this is a plan, this is a deal Hamas signed off on 15 plus days ago at this point in time. Where are our hostages? Let's make sure that that's certainly reported as well. Lior Soroka, what steps is Israel considering after Hamas has not returned the bodies of the deceased hostages for several days? So like you have heard and what I said in my briefing, there is a meeting taking place the Prime Minister is holding. And in terms of consequences for Hamas, nothing is off the table right now. But all of this is in full coordination with the United States, with President Trump and his team. David Isaac, JNS, could the Prime Minister's office provide comment regarding recent reports that Hamas is selecting candidates for the future technocratic government in the Gaza Strip, including who would head it? So in terms of that, I've also seen those reports. Let's get something very clear. Let's go back to the 20-point plan, which was established and has taken shape because we are in the first phase of this. And part of the 20-point plan says Hamas will have no future inside of the Gaza Strip. Gaza will be demilitarized. Hamas will be disarmed. That's my response. Joel Pollack, Breitbart News. Can you respond to a South African medical board finding the UN Special Rapporteur on the right to health guilty of unprofessional conduct for profane language against the Prime Minister on social media? I have not seen those reports, so I'm not going to comment at this time. Why would Hamas think that it can get away with faking the retrieval of hostages' body? This is exactly who Hamas is. It's a terror organization. For 2 years, I've seen the press write Hamas militants. I honestly don't understand why they would be considered militants. This is a terror organization. They are terrorists. And this video is absolutely horrific. And to see them lie over and over again for 2 years. This is where we are. 2 years later, and the lies perpetuate. This is a terror organization. They want nothing but to destroy Israel. This is what they stand for. And they continue to, of course, cause immense suffering to the Palestinian people inside of the Gaza Strip as well. Paula, why is it not possible to go to Gaza on a daily basis for journalists that usually go accompanied by the IDF? So in terms of that, I believe the policy will be changing soon. And there will come a time soon when reporters flood Gaza. We know this. And Hamas has already actually written your script. There's propaganda in the works right now once these foreign journalists do come into Gaza. We don't want you to be fooled by this rehearsed propaganda. Claims of genocide or manufactured famine are designed to actually hide the truth of what's going on. Hamas deliberately booby traps homes and buildings to kill our soldiers. We have told you this before. Tunnels and civilian infrastructure were wired to kill our soldiers and to force collapse when we clear them. Much of the destruction you'll see, and once foreign journalists go inside of Gaza, is the result of those booby trap buildings and underground fortifications, not careless targets. Stay skeptical and verify sources once journalists are allowed to go into Gaza. Andre Lombard from BBC. Regarding the drone footage, there appears to be 3 individuals in the video in red vests. Do you know who they are? And are the ICRC aware of this? In terms of the video, I can't speak on right now, but I'm assuming many of you have seen this video. It's horrific to watch. Just in terms of how Hamas clearly sees our hostages, this terror organization does not value life. That's beyond evident. Look at what they have caused to their own people during this war. They have caused immense suffering to their own people, their own blood inside of the Gaza Strip. Look at how they're treating our hostages, pretending it's one of our deceased 13 hostages that they just happened to uncover. I mean, they put the remains of one of our hostages in a hole they dug up and faked finding it. We have 13 deceased hostages inside of Gaza. We are demanding that they come home. We are demanding that they are released. And Joel, again, from Breitbart, will you be releasing this video? I can't speak to that right now. These are all of the questions that I see. Of course, if you have any more questions, you can reach out to us here at the Prime Minister's office. Thanks so much for joining us today.